Communication Air.
Welcome to the 64th episode of the Communication Air podcast, not to be confused with the worst gaming platform of all time, the N64. But this is the community.
That didn't take long.
Yeah, I had to do it. Had to do it to him. But this is the community patch episode of community patch notes episode of Does Video Game Length Matter? And with us today, we have a very special guest with an amazing mustache.
Like the best, honestly. Like if you're not watching this on YouTube, you are doing yourself a disservice.
Thank you guys.
You're officially Thunderstash Gaming now, right?
Yes.
Thunderstash Gaming, welcome. Thanks for being here. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me. I'm very excited about today's discussion we're going to have. I think there's a lot to unpack here, so I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, as you mentioned, you guys can find me on YouTube at Thunderstash Gaming, as well as on the other social media platforms, Thunderstash Gaming.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest. Nintendo Byte podcast, right? You're
yes.
You're a host.
Yeah, I am one of the hosts on the Nintendo Byte podcast. That's every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Arizona time, which would be 8 p.m. What your guys' time?
Something
I'm
like
in the East Coast, so I don't know. Arizona's
10.
Weird. Arizona, like, what are you doing, Arizona? No daylight savings time. What are you doing? But isn't it only like part of Arizona? Like some of Arizona does follow. No. Okay.
No, it's all of Arizona. I'm a native here, so I've been here almost 40 years, and I love it. I love the fact that we don't participate because nothing changes. We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, Johnny, disappointed in you for not mentioning that he is an NBA Jam champion.
Oh, I did mess it up, and I saw some tweets going back and forth that you were also a competitive basketball player at some point.
Yeah, no, I still play. I do still play at almost 40. Yeah, I played my whole life. Played basketball my whole life. I played in and won many tournaments. I won the 3-point championship for Arizona. I played at halftime of the Phoenix Suns game. Got to meet Dikembe Mutombo back in the day, if you remember.
What?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Steve Smith, because we were playing the Hawks that night, and of course I got to meet everybody on the Suns back in the day. Thunder Dan Marley, one of my favorites. Yeah, I did that. Another year I won the free throw state competition as well. Same thing, got to play at halftime. Yeah, I've played my whole life. I still do. I love it very much. And when it comes to Jam, so yeah, I won the Blockbuster Video tournament. I don't know if you guys remember. If you're old enough, they had the summer Blockbuster video game championships. And it was like NBA Jam, and the other game I think was Judge Dredd.
Okay.
The movie had came out, and it was this is back in the day of summer blockbusters. So obviously they paired it up. Probably made sense back then with a movie video game adaptation, even though it wasn't very good. So obviously the main thing was NBA Jam, and this was back in 94, and I was 9 years old. Played in the 18 and under, and yeah, I beat everyone's ass. So
wait, so I saw a clip. So the clip of you that you've been sharing around, that wasn't.
That was
you had a mustache because you were not 9 years old.
I believe at 9 years old he had a mustache.
No, so I played in that Blockbuster one. I won it. I got free video rentals for a year, and I was offered to move on to California. But I mentioned also in my video, it's like I was youngest of 3. Family wasn't going to pay for me to go to California to go compete in a video game tournament as much as I would have loved to have went. The video that is on my YouTube, that is at the Retro World Series that I participated in, and I entered this tournament having not played NBA Jam on the Super Nintendo like in decades. I have the arcade game at home, so I play on that. I grew up playing, of course, on Sega and Super Nintendo, and of course went on to play like NBA Hang Time and all the other NBA Jam-esque games. Yeah, I entered that tournament, played there at the Retro World Series, and that was the one that I won where I have the mustache, and I got to meet the NBA Jam announcer, Tim was his name. Tim, his last name. Awesome guy. He's the announcer for NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, all the midway games growing up. Super cool guy. You know, he's the guy who coined the phrase, he's on fire, and boom shakalaka. Dude's classic. He's a legend. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. I feel like you could have had your own kind of Little Miss Sunshine story if your parents did travel to California.
Oh yeah, man. I would have loved to have, honestly. I felt really good. Even to this day. I always say, like, if there's a jam tournament, I'm gonna go play. And I am really confident. It's a game I've been playing my whole life. I know it inside and out. And I also know basketball inside and out. So be really confident that if they held a global tournament, I would put money on myself.
Ooh, confidence.
Yeah, well, one of the few games I'm just like, I know it inside and out. And I've played outside of that tournament. There was one more tournament that we played in, my cousin and I, who's also very good. And it was at the Cobra Arcade Bar, which is in downtown Phoenix by the Suns Arena. And huge tournament they had. And it's a legit arcade. It's really nice. A lot of old school games, maintained very well.
Sorry.
And we played in that tournament, and we beat a team by over 100 points. People have a hard time even scoring 50 points in a game. So we ended up beating them like 160 something to like, I think 25. It was something very stupid. And I tried to get my girlfriend to get a picture of it because I didn't want to take one. I'm like, I don't want to take one and like just throw shade right in front of them by getting a picture to get proof. I'm like, that's rude. I'm not going to do that. But if you want to, you can.
Yeah, I don't want to take a selfie with them and the score in the background.
They're crying and you're.
Yeah, but we played in that tournament too. That was in like 2019, and that was the average probably win ratio was like 80 points. So,
wow,
that's really awesome. So for the listeners, just give them kind of an idea of what it is that you do on the internet.
Okay, yeah. So I have a channel on YouTube, Thunderstash Gaming, and I primarily review new and retro video games. I have been playing video games my whole life. When I say my whole life, since I was 3 years old. I have two older brothers. You know, they taught me how to play a regular Nintendo when I was 3, and I've never stopped. So I have a deep love for video games, for Nintendo, but for all consoles. I play Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox. I'm on Steam. I play everything. I love it. I consume it all. I grew up, of course, reading video game magazines like the Game Pro, EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly, which is classic, Game Informer, Nintendo Power, all that stuff. And then when the internet came about, I was there on IGN when it started, back when it was IGN64.com. Like, I found it when I was on AOL back in the day. And, you know, that's where I kind of started, and then going to the different fan sites like planetgamecube.com back in the day, the old school Nintendo sites. And so it's funny, I've read and consumed like video game reviews my whole life. And I always thought that this is something that I would love to do. I don't want to go to school for it because that was not something that I was interested in doing, going to school to write about video games, because I thought, you know what, I can do this without going to school for this. School is extremely expensive. And I went right into the restaurant business. I was a manager for 10 years with the same restaurant. And then I went into the mortgage industry and was the director of operations for Loan Depot Mortgage Company for 10 years. So I worked 20 years, basically from about 18 to 38 managing. And then I said, you know what? I really just want to do what I want to do, which is play video games and review them. And so that's what I'm trying to do, right? That's what I'm trying to do on my YouTube channel is review new games as much as I can because it's a one-man crew, one-man editor, you know, everything's just, you guys know, it's just me. And I'm also trying to revisit some of these older classic games because it's wild. Like today, I'm wearing this Donkey Kong Country shirt, and it's mind-boggling to me that this game is 30 years old now. You know, like it doesn't feel like
don't say that.
Yeah, right. So I'm revisiting a lot of these games because I kind of have a strict thing that I've been doing for a long time, and that's once I beat a game, that's it. I don't return to it for a long time. When I say a long time, it might be a couple decades because there's a lot of games to play. I love the variety and I want to see them all. And there's only so much time we have on Earth. Like we're only here for so long. We have other things we got to do. So I don't revisit games unless it's been a very long time, which is what I'm doing here. It's like, oh man, Donkey Kong Country's been 30 years. I got to go back through this game because I literally haven't played it since we got it for Christmas back in '94.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, like, I basically kind of said the same thing last week is like, there's so many games that I would like to play that I also, it's very rare if I revisit a game. If it's something like Splatoon, which is one of my favorite series, yeah, I'm going to play that. You know, that's just replayability, playing online with friends. But like story, narrative driven, or just even if it doesn't even really have a story to it, just platformers in general or whatever, like I will play it. And then I probably will just let it be.
Yeah.
Unless like my wife wants to play that game, then I might watch her play that game and see what her experience is with it. But I'm not going to play it.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And, you know, obviously there's games that have replay value that you're going to play forever, possibly. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at Switch with Mario Kart. That's a game that came out a month after the Switch launched. I had Mario Kart day one on the Wii U. I got it day one on the Switch.
Yep.
I'm still playing it. I'm still loving it.
Yep.
It's a game that's really timeless, and it's like how I play NBA Jam on the arcade, or like I got the NFL Blitz arcade. These games were built to have really endless replay value. But if it's a narrative-driven game, I'm really not returning because there's so many other games I would really like to play.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Like you are really getting into the topic, and I'm excited to get to it. Johnny, let's do some server maintenance real quick, and then let's get into this. Oh, and we got to ask him the question.
Yeah, we got to ask a question, but we'll do server maintenance first. I don't think he knows the question, but I have a good feeling about it today.
I think really.
Because I see some things in the background that make me me think.
Oh,
also, if you guys are, if the people are listening, audio listeners, I highly recommend you check out like the YouTube channel or like the video on Spotify and just look at Thunder or look at Steve's background because it is just a feast for the eyes. Like I'm distracted because I'm like looking for things. Also, amazing. I need to know how many switches you have because I see at least 2, and I got to make sure that I have more than you.
I think you do. What do you have? Like 6? 7?
I have 6. Well, 7. I have a 7th one pre-ordered.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, that's right. I got that pre-ordered too. I have 5.
Okay,
it's close. It's close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the ones you see, the Pokemon, the Tears of the Kingdom, the OLED Switch, the one I have pre-ordered, which is, of course, the new Zelda Light, which will be my first Light and my only Light. And then we have the Animal Crossing, which
that's a good one.
Oh, I do like
my lady.
See, that came out, like, I didn't really start acquiring multiple Switches until the OLED came out. So I pretty much have all of the special edition OLEDs. I don't have the Scarlet and Violet one. I kind of want to get it though. I think that's the only one I don't have. Anyway, I'm distracted. We're going to do some server maintenance. Make sure you leave 5-star reviews on Spotify, Apple, and we got a new 5-star review on Apple from J88 Fitness. Says, great video game podcast. I have been a listener of the Communication Era podcast since day one, and it keeps improving weekly. There are so many video game podcasts dealing with the latest news. While I do enjoy these types, Nintendo Powercast, shout out Nintendo Powercast. I appreciate the topical form this podcast has. Johnny Bo and Cheesy are great hosts that provide strong opinions and a good amount of banter. Also, they have guests every other week to provide an additional voice to each subject. Awesome podcast. I never miss an episode. Thank you so much, Jay. You lasted 63 episodes so far. Hopefully, many, many more.
Yeah, after this one, they're like, okay, I'm done.
But we also got, I think we got some new reviews on Spotify, but they're not written. But I did see the number tick up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Follow us on Spotify because we're like really close to 100 followers on Spotify.
Discord.
Join the Discord. There's actually really cool stuff going on in the Discord this week. People are showing off their pets.
Yeah, I like that.
And also, this is something for me personally. Subscribe to all my stuff. But on July 18th, look out for a video, and if you see it, please interact with it.
Are you making me a birthday video?
Is that your birthday?
July 18th, yeah.
Sure, yeah, we'll say it's your birthday. It's a birthday video for you. So if it's a birthday video for Cheesy, so wish Cheesy a happy birthday on this video. It's not going to make any sense. But do it anyway. But yeah, please interact with that video. I always get nervous when I post sponsored videos and nobody ever interacts with them. So please check it out. And then next week I will be in New Mexico. So keep an eye on why I'm doing that. But anyway, we ask our guests every single time which you prefer, Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World.
Oh man, that's such a messed up question. I love it. Wow. You know, guys, it's tough. I'm sure everyone says that, or at least I would hope they would say that, because it's no clear-cut winner here, obviously. Mario 3, you have the nostalgia. Mario World, obviously, you have that too, but if you grew up with both, you have a little bit more probably for Mario 3. I didn't see, none of us did back then, see Mario 3 until we saw the movie, The Wizard.
Uh-huh.
That's literally where we saw it, because we saw that when it came out. I always tell people this. I was telling my girl this like a week ago.
Uh-huh.
I said, there was no internet, babe. You gotta remember this. There's no internet, and the only way we got news about new video games was in video game magazines.
So what you're saying is that this was the first Direct.
Yeah, it was. No doubt. I have a short that I got coming out a little bit down the line talking about this. And yeah, like people say that, it was basically a glorified Nintendo commercial. And I'm just like, yeah. And what's the problem with that? That sounds great. And it was seriously, it was really cool. And so that factors in, right, to my nostalgia. And just the marketing blitz was really good back then. Like, I don't know if you guys remember or if you've seen it, pictures of it online. McDonald's.
Cheesy's young.
Yeah,
all right, come on, man.
Well,
Not
you
that
guys
young.
remember McDonald's and their Happy Meals like back in the day, right? Like in the 90s, or you at least seen pictures.
Yeah.
So they had this awesome Happy Meal set that was a Mario Brothers 3 box, and the artwork on it is fantastic. I kid you not. And it came with Mario 3 toys that were actually really cool. And, they had Mario 3 fruit snacks. they had everything. Like everywhere you turned, it was Mario 3. It was literally Mario Mania. If you've seen the commercial, you like for the actual game, then you know what I'm talking about. It was a special time. However, God, Super Mario World, I mean, that's pretty much peak, right? So if I was going based on purely nostalgia, I would have to go with Mario 3, but I'm not going purely based on nostalgia. I can't. So
No.
I gotta go Super Mario World because
Oh,
yeah,
I
I
was
can't go purely on nostalgia. Like they're
that
both
was a roller
amazing.
coaster.
They're both my kids. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
yeah, no, it's like
I
picking your
love 'em
favorite
both.
kid. Yeah. But
Yeah,
I was confident because you have the three Super Mario 3 sprite behind you. You have the Mario All Stars Wii game behind you. Like I don't think World was on that. I don't know. I don't remember.
Oh wait. So I actually have those toys, and I was like looking for Mario. I just found him.
Oh, nice.
Hold on.
All right, so this is messed up because Cheesy, he can't hear me, but Cheesy
I can hear you. Yep.
did not beat Mario 3 until like last year, or didn't even play Mario 3 until last year. So you
True.
like bringing out the nostalgia toys is a joke.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
count.
So you got the Mario Bros. Like popper,
Yeah, that's one of
and
them.
then the Luigi. I don't know what he's like on a cloud.
Yeah.
And then the
That's
other one,
right.
I don't have like the Goomba or the Koopa. Those were the only ones, right?
Yeah, I think it was four toys, I think. It's hard to remember. It was so long ago, but that commercial had like an animated Mario with like real people. Like almost like Roger Rabbit.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was pretty advanced. Like this was a really cool commercial. And as a kid, you're just like, oh my God, like I have to play this game. Like you've seen it on the commercials, you saw it in the movies. It's like, when is this game coming out? And that was another thing I was telling my girl. I'm like, we didn't have like hard launch dates for games. We didn't have release dates. You had to call the video store and they knew you by name because you called so much. And you had to ask, hey, did this game come in yet? Do you have any word on when it's coming out?
Mhm.
Possibly the month? At least the month? Give me a ballpark here, anything?
And they're
This
like,
how-
yeah,
this
let
how
me
it
just
was.
call up Nintendo real quick and see what they say.
Yeah, this is how it was. That's how it was, God, really till like the mid 90s. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a different time.
Well, Johnny, Super Mario Bros. World wins again. How do you feel?
I was feeling
He's-
confident for a little bit this year. You got back into the race, and now now World's pulling away again. It's 11-7.
Well,
Anyway, that's not what we're talking about.
yeah.
We're talking about, does video game length matter? And me and Cheesy talked about it last week, and we got some comments here from the community. But Steve, what are your initial thoughts? Do you take game length into consideration when deciding to play a game, or if you're reviewing a game, does that factor in?
I think for reviewing a game, it factors, right? Because obviously I have to figure out how much time it's going to take to create content for this game, right? So as a reviewer, yeah, it's something I have to factor, because if I just played a game that is 100 hours long and it took me 2 weeks to play it, and now I have to cut footage and write a review and then actually get in front of a camera and do it, we're talking what? 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to put out content. That's tough, especially for like a one-man team who's trying to grow a YouTube channel. So that's something I definitely have to factor in when it comes to reviewing games. But as a game player, just someone as a gamer, I think game length has its place in discussion, right? I think it's a nice thing to have. And for me, I look at it as like I'm about quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like if a 50-hour game, so I'm saying that's a longer game. A 50-hour game can maintain the same high level of quality from beginning to end that a shorter game does in 10 hours, then I am all for it, right? Who doesn't want more of a good thing, right? But the answer to that question overall just isn't that simple because there are a ton of factors that go into it. And I have a ton of notes to bring up about all of this stuff.
Whoa. Okay. Like what? What are some of your notes?
Well, there's so many points to discuss. I mean, right off the bat, I think one of the biggest things people look at with game length is, all right, well, how much does it cost? What's
Mm-hmm.
the price? That's the biggest
Mm-hmm.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at, for instance, look at Tears of the Kingdom. When it got announced it was going to be $70, there was a lot of people out on the old internet that were pretty upset
Mm-hmm.
about it being $10 more. And then there was another side that was also saying, but hey, like this is like going to be the biggest Zelda ever, right? I mean, you gotta imagine it's going to be a long game. It's going to be worth it, right? And that was kind of the debate back and forth with a game like Zelda. But then sometimes you have games that come out that are, I don't know, maybe 5 hours long, and they're charging $40 for it. So you gotta figure out what your baseline is even going to be as a gamer. What is short to you? What is long to you? How do you break it all down? There's types of games. There's the genre. I mean, nobody expects a beat 'em up game to be as long as a JRPG.
Mm-hmm.
We all go in there with a preconceived notion of how long this game is supposed to be based on history with the genre, right? Because beat 'em up games have never been super long.
True, but in that sense, like, can't it evolve into something that we haven't had before? So our expectations are different.
It could certainly evolve if that's what the developers want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the data I have, I really think proves otherwise, as to why it maybe doesn't need to evolve. But this goes for all games too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this goes for your open world games, your JRPGs, all of it. It's some very interesting data that really kind of had me shocked that I'm sure we'll get to at some point during this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, so like, just going from some of our comments that we've gotten, DePitsy from Discord said, I honestly think video game length is like going out to eat. You can get a really decent meal at a good price that fills you up, or you can go to a rich, fancy place and get a small, good-looking platter that leaves you wanting more. Or you could go to the fast food and get a bunch of food that leaves you sick from the amount and lack of quality it is. Is that a good comparison?
I think that's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah.
I
think we can all relate to that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to try to relate this to other media, like other types of media and other types of, I guess, value. Bozo says it's interesting how the discussion of length is concentrated in video gaming and not other forms of media. Assuming the price is the same, would a 6-hour movie be automatically better than a 2-hour version of it that spent time in the editing room? Is a dense 2,000-page book worth more than an elegantly written 200-page novel just because it takes longer to read?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
valid point, and that's a point that I have in my notes is situations like that. But I think we also got to talk about how do people play games. because this has to be defined. And I kind of made 4 bullet points, okay? And I think this is a huge factor when considering and talking about game length, okay? So you got the gamer that you're basically only doing what is necessary to roll the credits.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got the gamer who completes only the side quest required to obtain special items or abilities, but are not required to roll the credits. So, you know, like maybe you got to do a side quest to get the sword that you want in the game or the shield. We've all done that. Then you got the third one who completes all the side quests and obtains most of the collectibles. And then you got the last one, the one who 100%s the game. They saw and did everything the developers intended for you to see. You obtained all the collectibles, all the side quests, and you unlocked all the bonus content. So 100% completion, you did everything. So you got to ask, where do you fall on that? Because your game length is going to vary greatly based on where you fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people are saying, oh, I don't want to buy this game because it's not long enough, but you're only doing what's necessary to roll the credits and you're doing it as quick as possible, which there is, you know, to each their own. Let me say that. Let me just say to each their own. That is not how I play, but I respect if that's what anyone wants to do. And I know there are a lot of gamers out there that want to get to the credits as quickly as possible. And they might be waiting for a video game to come out for 3, 4, 5 years of anticipation. 8. Yeah, the game finally comes out. Yeah, what, Metroid?
Metroid, Mario, 3D
Right.
Zelda.
Well, Zelda was only 5.
True, true.
But it's like you wait all these years for the game to come out, and then once you get it, you beat it as quick as possible. You don't do any of the side quests. You just try to get to the credits as quickly as possible. And then you complain that the game's short.
Johnny.
Like, wow.
Whoa. Hold on. Let me explain. I 100% at Mario Wonder in a weekend. And that game's way too short. It was like 20 hours, or maybe not. I don't think it was even 20 hours, 100%. Maybe 15.
Yeah, but don't you think that if you kept playing it, that meant that you were having a good time and you shouldn't
I
be
did have a good time, but
it
it was too short. It was too short. I wanted more. All right?
Okay. Continue, Steve.
But there was no more.
So you got those 4 different gamers, right? And I'm gonna reference back to them later. Okay. Because I want to go into the next point. You guys go into the next point?
Yeah. Honestly, like, this is amazing. You've taken notes. You have bullet points. You I'm assuming you did a bunch of research and
yeah.
This is the most that anyone has ever done for this show. So
including ourselves.
Thanks, man. Oh, I'm happy to contribute. This was really interesting to me, and I think you guys will. Once I get to the end of this, you'll find it interesting. So it'll be fun.
Okay. Yeah.
So another factor that we really have to look at is retro games versus modern games. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned earlier I started playing Nintendo when I was 3 years old, so that would put it at the year of 1988. That's when I started.
You had a mustache then too. So
I did. And so I was able to play Nintendo by myself without having to share the controller with my brothers because they were in school at the time when I was 3, and this was before I went off to preschool. It's funny. I was writing this up this morning and these notes, and I even texted my mom to confirm. I'm like, "Hey, what year did I go to preschool?" I can't remember. She replied immediately and knew. I'm like, thanks. You got a better memory than I do. So I do remember there was a window, right? There was a window of opportunity for me because when you're the youngest, right, youngest sibling, you rarely get the controller handed to you. And there's rarely time for you to play because we didn't have TVs in our room back then. Like there was a TV. We had 2 TVs in the house, one in the living room, and that was the big screen 25-inch TV in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
That looked like a
It
piece
was
of
like
furniture.
huge too.
Yeah. And then you had the one TV in one of the kids' rooms. So it's just like you see in the pictures. There's kids crowded around a Nintendo, and you wait for your turn to play. And if you die, I mean, you got to give up the controller. And we usually played, if you die, you give it up, and if you beat a level, you give it up.
Oh, okay.
Which means like, yeah, so even if you do good, you don't get to keep playing, which kind of sucked. I was never for that rule, but at any rate. So many of the games that I grew up playing back then, I still play today. And this is something I want to factor in. So all of these games back then, they retailed between 60, 70, and they were that much back then. And they would be considered, and rightfully so, extremely short in length by today's standards. But their length felt normal back then.
You all right?
Yeah, you guys still there?
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Yeah.
My screen just flickered. So their length felt normal back then. I continue to play many 8 and 16-bit games, and once I beat the game, I'm never like left wishing the game was longer or feeling like the game wasn't long enough or feeling like unfulfilled, regardless of length. If the game was good, there's always a sense of gratification when the credits roll. Recently, I played DuckTales, revisited that, did a video on my channel. Now, this is a good, I think, test case because this is a game that I've been playing since, I think, 1989 or 1990. I've beaten the game probably 50 times since owning it as a kid. DuckTales also, by the way, has an alternate ending if you roll the credits with over 1 million in treasure, which adds like a few ounces of replay value to the game, which was rare back during the NES era to even have an alternate ending. But outside of that, the game can be beaten like rather quickly if you know what you're doing and like you're decent enough at platformers. Yet, this short game I've been playing for over 30 years. So is it worth it? Right? We got to look at the value in that aspect too, because if the game's so good, I'm not the only one who feels this way. People who played DuckTales love the game. They know what it is. It's short. It's enjoyable. The soundtrack in the game is amazing. It sticks with you pretty much your whole life. So what happens when a game is like $60 or $70 and it's a relatively short experience from beginning to end, but it's an amazing experience. So for that time that it has you, like it's got you completely locked in. It's amazing. And the credits roll and you don't feel like you were shorted anything. You feel great. You put the game away. You move on with life. Maybe you play it again a year or two later. So then I thought about, of course, and it sounds like you guys have talked about this before, but I think it's good to hear from, I guess, probably someone who grew up in the 80s, is that take movies, for example, right? There's tons of movies I've owned and watched numerous times since childhood. Like the Rocky movies, Goonies, Sandlot, Star Wars trilogy, the original, the Beverly Hills Cop trilogy, Indiana Jones, Breakfast Club. There's so many. Basically, any 80s movies that were like playing on TBS back in the 90s. And then there's one truly timeless that series that I've seen more than any other movies, and that's the Back to the Future trilogy. Now, if I buy that trilogy and only watch the movie once, and mind you, VHS movies were very expensive in the 80s. Very. Like $50, $60, $70.
Jeez, I didn't know that.
Stupid. It was stupid. Yep. And they held value for a long time. So if I buy that trilogy, right, and let's say it's $60, and I only watched the movie once, would the perceived value be good? If I bought this trilogy for $60, I watched it once, never watched it again. Now, what if I watched the movies well over 100 times, which I have? The value improves dramatically, right? So growing up, like before we had social media and, you know, the internet, computers, and basically all the entertainment options that we have today, our main entertainment options were TV and video games. So games back then were meant to be played multiple times. Like back then, you didn't beat a game and then trade it in. You kept it forever and you continue to play it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that should always kind of be looked at when we're talking about the value and the length, and because you only had these two entertainment options, right? So then we got to talk about the game's length and the value within the length of the game. And that's another big thing that I think we should discuss. And I don't know if you guys have previously, but it's the fluff factor, you know, the bloat. Is this a worthwhile experience? And there's a lot of interesting data to go into this. And, you know, John, I know you know about this because we actually talked about this recently. And Cheesy, I'm sure you know. But Elden Ring. Let's take Elden Ring as a really fun case example, okay? So Elden Ring's a long game.
There's no fluff.
Right. I mean, I enjoy Elden Ring. And I'm not even saying it as fluff or anything. But, like, if you go to howlongtobeat.com, I don't know what the numbers are for Elden Ring.
Yeah, I think it's like 55 main campaign.
Yeah, so it's a long game.
Yeah.
So, as of 1 month ago, 80% of Xbox players were not able to play Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. They couldn't even access the DLC because you have to get to a certain point in the game to be able to do that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
You're not an Elden Lord, so
I am
too scared
another
to play.
Crab's Treasure Lord.
This is on Xbox. On Steam, it was 60% hadn't beaten the game, and 27% haven't even made it past. Is it pronounced Margit?
Margit, yeah, the first boss. That's the first main story boss.
So 27% of players didn't even make it past the first boss. 60% hadn't beaten the game. And then for PlayStation, it was 55%. Okay? So Elden Ring is a long game. This is a game that if it was short, I think people wouldn't buy it, or they wouldn't be as interested. They wouldn't, let me say they wouldn't buy it. I would say it wouldn't be as successful as it is if it was a short game. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is that the vast majority of Elden Ring players haven't even beaten the game. So why are you complaining about how long the game is? Or why are you judging or making decisions based on like what games you're going to buy based on how long they are if you don't even beat the game? And it goes a lot further.
This feels directed at me. I did beat Elden Ring. I did beat Elden Ring. All right.
It's not directed at you. I don't know if you beat it.
I don't beat any other games, but I beat Mario, Zelda, and FromSoft games. That's it.
Well, no, real quick, give Steve the I don't know what it is that you do with games.
Well, I play them until I'm satisfied. So like that could mean I beat it. It could mean I roll credits. It could mean, I'm just
rarely.
Yeah, no, that's rare. No, I'm not saying it happens all the time, but like I play them until I'm satisfied. Like if I'm like, oh, well, that was fun for the weekend, but I want to move on to something else. Like yesterday or the other day, I was just like, I'm bored, and I don't want to play all these other games that I have, so I'm just gonna pick up a game, and I forget if. Steve, you're the one that likes Wave Race. Or somebody likes Wave Race.
I love it. That's me.
There's a game on Switch. It was on sale for like $3, and it's essentially Wave Race. and I picked that up and I played that for a couple hours. I'm like, oh, that's good. And I'm never going to play it again, but it was fun for those 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, how much money do you spend to go to the movies? Right?
Oh yeah, I know. That's easily, but
So I'm sure the game that you bought, I'm guessing was
it was
a better
cheaper
deal.
than that. It was cheaper than
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah. So, again, it's that's why ultimately, like, I always think that there's no wrong answer here as to short games, long games, right? But it's a great talking point. It's a great thing to discuss because we all look at entertainment in different ways. Like, we've been programmed to spend a certain amount on video games. We've been programmed to spend a certain amount on going to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's changed, obviously, with
Yep.
inflation. That's went up dramatically. And then if you start having some kids, then it's going to start getting really expensive, especially because they're going to want other stuff too.
Yeah, it's not just the movie.
No, it never is. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is off topic, but I don't think movie theaters are going to last much longer. I don't see how they're sustainable.
I 100% agree. And I've talked about this, off, not on camera, but with some of my friends here locally. And I completely agree. It's not sustainable. Not only that, but you got to look at the landscape of everything. Okay. Where's all the best TV content coming from? Coming from streamers.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, HBO Max. That's where it's coming from.
Apple.
Apple. The best
Apple.
stuff's there. The best stuff's there. The best stuff you can watch at home. You don't need to go anywhere. And the amount of money it costs to go to the movies, like if you got a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say you got yourself and 2 or 3 kids. I mean, you'll be lucky to get out of there at $100.
Jeez. Well, and it's interesting too because like when both of you were saying that you don't think it's sustainable, my first thought was like, okay, well, what about like theater and Broadway? Like those are really expensive tickets.
But that's different. I feel like that's a different audience.
It is.
It is because it's a live production, and there isn't any kind of competition when it comes to that. Like, yeah, you can watch a video version of the production, but it's not as much fun as it is being there.
Yeah. It's like watching the circus on TV versus going to it.
Yeah.
I will
Always
say
gonna
I've
be
never
better.
seen Empire Strips Back on any streaming services.
What is that? The Empire Strips Back?
Yeah, I went to it last week, and it's a parody burlesque show for Star Wars.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, that's exactly. If you think
That's
about
pretty
it,
funny.
you'll know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Anyway,
Wow.
back on the topic of games. So like Elden Ring, and so games like Elden Ring and like Tears of the Kingdom. I think we talked about this a lot on the episode. Like when I think about those games compared to, Kirby, and they're charging the same price for a Kirby game. Like, how's that? There's no way a Kirby game's worth the same as Tears of the Kingdom or Elden Ring. Or even Breath of the Wild, because I guess Tears of the Kingdom was more expensive.
Yeah. I won't argue that at all. But even if the Kirby game was longer, I still wouldn't argue it. But that's based on my personal preference, right? Because the Kirby games they're good. They're not Zelda, right? They're not the big AAA experiences. They're not Elden Ring. They're not some huge JRPG. It's a Kirby game,
Mm-hmm.
It's a platformer. And platformers are Yeah, I talked about a little bit about the genres, right? And I only expect, and again, because we've been programmed this way, to have games that are a certain amount of length in each genre. So like platformers are historically not long games. The longest platformers are like the Mario games, like Mario 64, Mario Galaxy, Mario Odyssey. If you look at all the platformers out there that are strictly platformers, Mario is the longest. Those are the longest games to beat. Like if you look at some of the other platformers, like Sonic the Hedgehog, those games are shorter, much shorter than the Mario games. But they're never going to be as long as an RPG or an open world game ever. So you have to ask yourself if the juice is worth the squeeze. Do you want to spend this much money on a platformer on day one? And that's another point that I have somewhere in my notes, but it's like if you think a game is going to be good, if you saw the previews and the trailer, like you're interested, you're like, I know I want to play this game, but I don't want to spend $60 on it. I just don't think it's worth 60. Like if that's the way you feel, then that's the way you feel. Have some discipline. Don't buy the game.
What is
60.
that? What is that?
Right, but just don't buy it. Don't buy it at 60. Wait for it to go on sale. Nobody said you have to play it on day one. Right? So if you really,
Well, I mean,
if
I
you
guess
really are excited, then buy it day one. But if you're not, it will go on sale.
it's hard to say that about like Nintendo games though, because the Nintendo games they don't typically go on sale. I mean, they do go on sale eventually. Like there's sales, you know, tomorrow's Prime Day, so there will be sales, and then Target had their sales last week, but I don't know how old those games were. Like I don't know if Wonder was on there. But you could get Nintendo games for $10 off whenever you want. Just buy the vouchers.
Yeah.
Just buy the vouchers.
That's true. And the voucher is a great system. And yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I saw the sales. I think they're $39.99.
Yeah, yeah, I think that was Best Buy. They were 35 at Target, and Prime Day. I don't know if anything went live yet, but they'll probably be $35-$40.
Yeah, which is a great deal. But I do agree with you in that yes, Nintendo games. Look, we're in a historic era. We're in an era where we haven't seen a Switch price drop, which all other Nintendo consoles have had multiple price drops. So we haven't seen that. And of course, we don't have the Nintendo Select titles like that. Back in the day when they would reach a milestone, it used to be when they were a million seller. Like if you look back at 64, you had that nice ribbon on the top right hand corner of the boxes saying, hey, this game's a million seller. Okay. So
you have to do that too many times now.
Yeah. We're going to sell it to you for half the price. And it was great because, if you've never played the game, you can go get them. You had the player's choice games. Sony had that with the PlayStation. They had their greatest hits. Well, you could get great games for like $10 or $20. But it seems that really all of the major console manufacturers have got away from that. When's the last time we've even seen that?
A Nintendo Select or just any of the...
Yeah, like the Sony greatest hits. And
Microsoft, they have Game Pass, so they're never going to do that again. Yeah. PlayStation, yeah, I guess PlayStation... I don't know, they kind of put theirs on their subscription service now. Some of the older games.
And I guess really the only thing that we're seeing today is really just collections. So in a way, I think that could be the other way around selects or greatest hits.
Yeah. I think you're right.
But not really the same.
No, not really the same. But I do agree with you that Nintendo games rarely go on sale.
But
That's for
I do
sure.
think if Nintendo wants to break the record, they will do some things. They'll have a price cut probably near the end of the year. They probably have to wait until the Zelda Lite comes out before they do it.
I agree. Like my prediction, you could say, is that, or at least I think this would make sense. This is my logical prediction: is that you announce Switch 2, the reveal, and in tandem, you announce the price cut of Switch 1. So you basically announce Switch 2, you let everyone know it's going to be backwards compatible because that's going to be a huge selling point for parents, for the everyday gamer, right? Not for us. Anyone who's probably watching this, not for you guys either, because you guys are going to buy it day one. We all are. Like, we're already in on this, but for your average gamer, the casual gamer, for the parents buying this, they want to know, hey, if I buy little Timmy a Nintendo Switch and I buy these games for him, is he not going to want to play it anymore because there's a new console out and now I have to sell these games? You know, and I have to put it on OfferUp or something. So that's a big selling point that says, no, you can take these games and you can play them on the Switch too. So I think that's a really big deal. And I was thinking about this too, man. Think about this. The Switch in March is going to be 8 years old. So if you were born when the Switch came out, you're 7. Like, you might be getting your first video game console.
I saw.
You know what I mean?
I saw there's like I forget who it was. There's a YouTuber and they're like, I was in middle school when the Switch came out. I'm like, oh my god, I graduated college. I was I got a grown man job.
It's funny. It's almost like the GTA 5
Right.
deal,
Yeah.
where it's like, you know, what were you doing when GTA 5 came out and where are we at now?
Yeah.
I was trying to pay rent. I don't know what you were.
Yeah, we're in the same spot. Like, as far as it being, what is it, 10? Is it 10 years or?
Yeah, I
10
think so.
years. Because I think it would have been. It's about the same as Mario Kart 8.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So I do want to give a shout out to LPs on YouTube. If you don't know who they are a content creator that makes really great Let's Play videos. It said 30 hours is the sweet spot, but really I don't think there's such a thing as too long. For example, I poured 1,000 hours into Skyrim, loved it, but that's an extreme example. Ultimately, if the game is good, I don't care how long or short it is. I beat Mother in 9 hours and I loved it as much as Skyrim. However, I may not have enjoyed it as much if there wasn't Earthbound and Mother 3 to follow it up. In the end, I prefer games to be at least 20 hours long. Anything less, and it's not enough time to fully flesh out a story, in my opinion. And like, I understand what they're saying. I think story, we've kind of talked about that before. It's subjective. Johnny doesn't think there's any good story video games or
There aren't.
good
Stories in video games don't matter.
Um,
You're a good guy, you take out the bad guy. That's all they are.
So with what it is that you're saying, like kind of what you were saying at the beginning, like there isn't a right or wrong answer to this question. But I do like when you said, if you see a game and it is $60, like you love it, but it's $60 and you don't want to pay for it, kind of going back to like where we got off track a little bit.
Yeah.
That game isn't for you and you could wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I reviewed the new Contra that came out. Okay.
Okay.
And the comments section really, really blew up on this review. And even my title was, hey, did Konami overcharge for this game? It's a $40 game. It's basically a remake of Contra on NES.
Mm-hmm.
That is a short game if you know what you're doing. It's a hard game. A lot of people that can't beat the game. even with the 30 live Konami code, can't beat the game. So even with cheats, they can't beat it. So then you gotta look at that too. That's another thing, is the difficulty on some of these games. But essentially, they're charging $40, and it's like, hey man, bottom line, this is a good game. I recommend it. If you think $40 is too much, I am not going to disagree with you. But that's what they charged, and I decided to pick up the game and play it and review it. I was excited for it. I decided to be a day one adopter. It will eventually go down in price. And so if you think the game's worth $20, then add it to the wish list. All you gotta do it on all of these console stores: PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, Steam. You add it to your wish list. When it goes on sale, they send you a notification. It's that easy. That way you never miss the sale. And you see what the sale price is, and you say, oh, okay, that's good enough for me, right? $20, I'm in. $40, no. And that's the thing, is that it doesn't make it a bad game because it's short, right? It's just short. But I looked into some numbers about this, and this is another thing that to me I thought was very interesting, is that one thing I talked about in the review is the replay value. And I also talked about how many times I've played Contra since being a kid. Like, we all grew up playing Contra. We'd beat it before. And it's like a game that you would play pretty often, like replay it. But there's tons of unlockables in Contra. Tons, and there's some pretty cool ones. And so how do you play the game? It goes back to that.
Right.
And I can beat this game in a couple of hours, the new Contra. I went on to Steam and looked through the comments section, see if anyone has unlocked everything in the game. And I found 2 comments on people that are trying to do this. One guy said that he's played a good 50 hours or so, and he's still playing it with friends. He even says, I haven't even read all of this. He says people say the price isn't worth it, which is funny because it's what we're talking about. He said, meanwhile, I'm a massive Contra fan, even if I'm trash at the game. So I bought it day one, and he loves the game. And then another person had said that it took him about 30 to 40 hours to unlock everything. Okay. So what's to be said there? Because if you want the game to be longer, it can be. And the unlockables are cool. Like, they're not lame. It's not like I have to put in 20 additional hours to unlock some like concept art illustration that I can look at for 2 seconds. You know what I mean?
Or something that you'll probably find on the internet.
Yeah, it's not like that. Like, it's some cool stuff. It's unlockable characters, like different characters, and it's not just a skin. They actually control different. Everything about it's different. They have unlockable soundtracks. Like, you can play the entire Contra game using the Castlevania soundtrack. They have an arrangement, so it's all like Castlevania music playing Contra. It's actually pretty cool, especially if you grew up playing Castlevania and you know those tunes. It was pretty cool. But the point is that this game that's $40 that everyone was debating about the length of and saying, it's not worth it, or it's not a good game because it's $40. It's like, no, it's a good game. It is actually a really good game. It's just a matter of if you're willing to spend full price on it. If you think it's worth 20, then wait till it's 20. However, the flip side is that if you're a completionist, you want to like unlock everything, it could take you 50 hours to play the game.
Yeah.
So, like, how do we factor that in?
Johnny, let me ask you a question. Do you, you've talked about Super Mario Bros. Wonder took you 5 hours to complete it. Obviously, you've played Mario games before. Take yourself out of the equation. Is it a $60 game, like, that you would recommend to somebody who has never played Mario before or still likes Mario? Maybe it's still challenging for them. Like, they're not used to platforming. They're not as good at it. Like, is that still a $60 game?
No,
Or
because I recommend something else. I recommend Odyssey over Wonder, or Breath of the Wild over Wonder, because I think you'll get more out of it. Like Wonder, yeah, it's fun for 10 hours. It's probably the main story, and then another 5 to 10 to 100% it. But there's not like, you're not spending 50, 60 hours 100% this thing. Like Odyssey, I think took like 55, 60 hours 100%. I mean, Wonder is fun. I've said it since it came out. It's fun, but it's way too short. And it's also way too easy
for you.
I think just in general for anybody.
And of course, that's subjective. So it could be a really great experience for someone. That one thing that I really liked about that comment is that the person said that they're not very good at the game. However, they like the series and they still wanted to play it anyway. So like, they got their enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, and I respect that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like, I always have to think about it, the money aspect. Even though, like, I could get whatever I want, I'm at a stage in my life where it doesn't really matter. Like, if I buy a game at 60 and I don't get my money's worth, it's not a big deal. But, some people might only be able to get a game a year or every, like, you can't afford every game. Mm-hmm. And if I recommend a game that they could only get 10, 20 hours out of, and that's what they need to do, that's all they could do for like a year, no, I don't feel right doing that.
And I think that's a valid point. I've bought plenty of video games as gifts for kids, like, my family's kids, my friends' kids. Plenty of Switch games I've bought. And probably the game I bought most for all of them is Breath of the Wild. And because Zelda was my first game too. The original Zelda on NES was the first game I ever bought for my like 5th birthday back in the day. So, but it's the bang for the buck you get. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I would recommend the longer games first. If I'm giving a recommendation to someone where I know that, like, hey, they may only get like 1 or 2 games a year, then yeah, I want to get them the most value out of their dollar. Always. That makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. And growing up, that's how it was. Like, you didn't get video games all the time. Like, you didn't own a ton of video games like we do today. Like today, I think kids own a lot more video games than we ever did growing up. Growing up, you trade games with like people, or mainly what you did is you rented games. And
yeah, I remember renting.
You rented them, and you knew what the game plan was. Before you rent the game, you have everything done, all your chores, all the stuff you got to do. Mm-hmm. Because when you go rent this game, the clock starts.
Right. Yep.
How quick can we beat this game? Because here was the problem. Especially growing up like during the 16-bit era. You rent an RPG or any game that has an internal save file. The odds of you renting that same game were slim. And then not only that, but people, I kid you not, people would rent the game and just delete every save file.
Yeah.
All the time. It's like, why? You only needed, there was an open slot for you. Why'd you have to do that? And this happened all the time. So I look at that too. That was another big thing back in the day when it came to buying games, right? Is that you rented them. So yeah, I think value is very important. And again, Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, those are the games that I'm always buying as gifts or recommending.
Yeah, so my nephew, he's 8, and I got him Pokemon Violet last Christmas, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't picked it up. Like, I'm pretty sure he hasn't played it like at all. But I got him Nintendo Switch Sports, and he plays that thing all the time. So, I mean, it's probably because he's a kid, and I don't know how kids function, and I don't know if an 8-year-old kid can read that much. So,
well,
probably made
it's
it
funny
difficult.
You say that. Yeah, I think it is, because I've experienced the same thing. Like, literally, I'll hear back. Like, my girlfriend will be on the phone with one of her friends that we bought video games for. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, hey, ask him where he's at in the game. I want to know where he's at. Because, like, I'll write a note in the card and tell him, like, hey, we're not going to buy you another game unless you beat this game. I want to see proof. I want to see you do this. Like, I want to see you roll the credits and accomplish this. Because, I know the gratification of beating games, especially when you're younger, and it's a good feeling.
There is a gratification. Maybe I should do it more often.
Yeah, there totally is. So, point is that almost every time I hear back is that it's too hard. They don't understand it. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. And I'm just like, damn, my God sucks. Like,
yeah, but it's also
you guys help them?
It's also hard to, like, at least you didn't, like, tell them to buy it. Like, at least you're the one that bought it for this other person. So, like, yeah, it sucks that they're not enjoying it like you would expect them to, but at least they're not wasting their money. Could you imagine recommending a game that, somebody just doesn't like, and they spent, $60, $70 on it, and that's like that's all they do. Like, say you recommend them like Kirby, and they only get 5 hours out of it, and they're like, this is the dumbest series ever. Why would you ever recommend this?
Johnny has a real hate for Kirby, by the way.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that.
I don't get the appeal. I don't get the appeal at all for Kirby. It's too easy. But anyway, I think I don't want to recommend somebody and have somebody waste their money because of my recommendation.
Yeah, I get that. A lot of these games that I've bought for them, when I hear they haven't played them, my hope is that they don't go like trade it in to GameStop. I'm like, please just don't trade it into GameStop. Trust me, you'll grow into this at a later age, and you'll be happy that you still have it.
Yeah,
you can go grab it off your shelf and play it because now you're ready for it. So even if they don't like it now, I know they'll grow into it.
Yeah, I had an uncle who was a little bit younger, so kind of like how I am to my nephew, and he's the one that got me Metroid Prime on GameCube, and like Metroid is probably one of my favorite series now because of that. And I don't remember if I didn't like it back then, or like if I took my time, or if I liked it right away. But I'm glad he introduced it to me. So I like being that for somebody else.
I do too. And I take it seriously. I really do. And it sounds like you do too. Like, if this is your introduction to games, because for a lot of them, they were getting their first Switch, right? And they were hitting me up saying, hey, do you know where we can get a good deal on Switch? I get on the internet and do a little search, see what I can find out for them. And, and they're like, do we get them the light or the regular or the OLED? So I'm always the guy, putting on the blue Best Buy shirt and helping everyone. And of course, then I'll get them a game or two, right? And so I do take it seriously though, as to like, hey, like whatever games we get, if they don't like them, like they may not end up like liking video games. This is serious.
Yeah.
We got to make sure that with the games we
corrupt
choose
these
good
people.
ones. Yeah.
They might like play sports or something. I don't know. I don't want them
Right.
doing that. They might have friends. I don't know.
I just always try to choose good games. You know, you're part of making that first impression on them. When you're the one, and it's not your kids, but you're the one who gets to introduce video games to them. It's like, all right, I got to make sure I choose the right ones here, and that they're not too hard, but hard enough, I guess. It's kind of tough, you know.
Yeah.
Especially with a game like Zelda. It's like they may not know where to go or what to do.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Is like, especially with something like Breath of the Wild, it's or just Zelda in general, because you don't know where you're going most of the time. Most of it is a puzzle. You just got to kind of figure out on your own. But if you're a kid and you're playing it, maybe you just give up and you're like, oh, I don't know where to go, or the game's broken, or like.
I think that's what happens a lot. That's why I told him I won't buy you another game until you beat it, because I don't want him to give up. Because look, I played the first Zelda on Nintendo, and I beat it when I was, I think, 7 years old. Nobody else I knew had beat it.
I was gonna say that's pretty big.
Yeah, people older than me hadn't beat it. Like, really, no one I knew had ever beat Zelda. It was just like, it was too hard. Everyone just said it was too hard. Kind of like how people look at Souls games today. That would be like your equivalent back then. It's just too hard.
What's funny about Souls games, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, no, you good.
Everybody was saying Shadow of the Erdtree was so hard, like extremely hard. And now there's people that are doing like no hit runs and like breaking the game. So it just, you gotta let it sit. You gotta let it sit a little bit.
You do. I agree. Because I have seen that. I've seen the YouTube videos just scrolling through my feed and seeing the titles. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's all good now or what? People aren't upset anymore about how hard it is. A couple other points I want to bring up.
Yeah.
One thing I think that we got to look at, and I am not speaking from like my own, I guess, personal experience, but as a whole is the age. And it's the amount of free time that you have at your disposal. So as a kid, you have tons of free time for video games. And as an adult, it feels like the exact opposite sometimes. And I think it changes on if you have kids or not. How much time you have there. How many activities are your kids doing? To where you get off work and you got to go run them here and run them there. So I think game length impacts you either more or less depending on the amount of time that you can afford to allot to gaming. Plus, if the game is long but it's not good, you're just spending more time doing something that you're not exactly enjoying, which again is why I always say like quality over quantity. That's why I always circle back to that. But you got to look at that with the age factor. So as a kid, yeah, you have endless time to do this, but as an adult, if you don't have a lot of time, I feel like when you pick up a game, you need to know where you're going and what you're doing to make that time count. And sometimes when you're playing like these huge open world games that are super long and you pick it up again because this is the first time you've had an opportunity to play the game in 2 weeks, you have no idea what you're doing. Where did I leave off? What's going on in the story? What quest was I working on? And by the time you figure it out, you've already wasted like half of the time that you have to play the game. And then you never end up beating the game. And you never end up really getting anywhere. It's like you're running in place. And some of the stats I have like truly speak to that. And another point I want to bring up about the length and the quality is the fluff and the padding. Have you guys have played Assassin's Creed?
Yep.
Yeah, actually, just real quick, Jeff Troyvania on YouTube said, I think also though I agree that artificial inflation is so artificial inflation isn't so great. Assassin's Creed Valhalla took me nearly 100 hours, but that's because there's like 20 different kind of things to collect in all of the towns and the overall world, and running around the areas, finding all the stuff takes a long time.
Yeah, I platinum that game. I have the platinum on
Wow.
Valhalla, and I have it on Odyssey. And a lot of people speak to the Ubisoft fluff, and I know exactly what he is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Ubisoft is just, you know, it's a company that has been doing this for a long time, right? You got the pointless fetch quest. You know, you're helping some NPC run errands that add nothing to the story and give you like a useless reward in exchange for doing the side quest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is that useful content? Does it feel like the developer is wasting your time, or should I say, like, not respecting your time sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like adults can appreciate shorter games more than, say, teenagers today who would prefer longer games and to get more bang for their buck. But universally, I think everyone wants to get more bang for their buck. It's just, it doesn't have everything in it, right? Like, is the more bang just 10 hours of BS fetch quests? Like, does that make it better? Does that make it worth more money if you just added in a bunch of fluff? And honestly, I'll get to this, but I think some developers are purposefully doing this. I really do. Because they know the game will sell better if it's longer, if it meets a certain mark. They have data on this stuff. They know how long a game has to be. And the thing is that gamers, you guys gave away the game plan because you went on social media and you complained about game length. And what did all the developers do? They see it. All the guys working in corporate, all the ones getting the analytical data, they're aggregating it. They're looking at it. They're saying, hey, based on what everyone's saying on Twitter and Reddit, games need to be this long. So we need to shoot for this length. So if a developer hands in a game, it's completed. It's done. But it's 20 hours. They're going to hand it back to the developer and say, we need you to make this 30 hours. And they say, well, what do you mean? The story's done, man. This is complete. It's ready to go. Well, no, it's not going to sell because it needs to be 30 hours because that's the data we have. If it's not 30 hours, it won't sell at the price point we have.
So it's just crazy because, like, yeah, maybe they have all of these numbers that say we need to make the game longer, and that's what the gamers wanted. But then when gamers do play it, it sounds like they're not even finishing it.
They're not. Okay, let me get to this. The data here is wild. So I'll scroll down here. Okay. Let's see. As games have gotten longer over the years, right, the completion rates have dropped dramatically. So again, people are saying that they won't buy a game unless it's X amount of hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they don't even roll the credits on the game, let alone do all the side quests or 100% the game. The vast majority of people don't finish the games that they start. So for single player content games, the games we're talking about, right? Open world games, linear games, RPGs, whatever. The average completion rate is a pitiful 14%.
No, wait, 14%?
Just to roll credits. Just to roll credits.
14% of people that install a game and play it. 14% of them would beat the game.
Wow.
I'm not alone. I'm in the majority. Nice.
And then I was looking at Steam. So according to a study from a website called Science Direct, 51% of games on Steam have a completion rate of 10% or less. And
I mean, that kind of makes sense though, right? Because of all the sales and like people buy games and just never play them.
They have to be started.
Okay.
In order to get this data. So you can buy the game, but it doesn't start until you've actually played the game. So these are games that people have tried. And only 2% have a completion rate of more than 50%. So 2% of games that are started on Steam have a completion rate of more than 50%. That number is mind-boggling.
So when I think of games like Elden Ring, the completion percent is like around 40%, I think, that beat the game.
Yeah, I have some numbers somewhere here on Steam and Elden Ring.
So maybe it's not as bad. It's better than a lot of games.
Yeah, well, Elden Ring?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Elden Ring's a great game. Elden Ring's a great game. And that's kind of my point, too, is that this game's so good, yet all these people, whether it be from Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, it's so good, yet you haven't even beat the game? What? Like, why? Like, you can't even access the DLC because you haven't gotten that far.
It's hard.
I know, but look at this. I even wrote this down. The game came out February 2022. The Erdtree DLC came out June this year. So you had 28 months. The majority of players haven't beat the game. So the number I had was 65% across all platforms haven't beat the game.
65% haven't beat it. So 35, if I do math right, 35% have beat it. So that is still higher than your typical game.
Yeah. It's higher than the typical game for sure.
And the player base would be much higher than, because I think it sold like 25 million, right?
Yeah.
The last number that they showed. So I love those. Like, I wish the DLC had achievements, because I always like seeing like how many people have beaten a boss. And that's how I usually tell like where I'm at. Like if I'm close or like. So we're going to do an episode on if games should have achievements, and I think it kind of leads into maybe artificially extending game length, because, you know, you're going to try to get all the achievements if you want. But they're not necessarily, not all achievements are like just for beating games. Like they have like special requirements. So that was a way of extending gameplay. Like back, I mean, I know games still have achievements and trophies, but it's not emphasized as much as it was back in 360 PS3 days. I don't think as many people care about them as much. So now they're just kind of relying on games having the ability to hold the attention of the player without those carrots, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I found another article that I thought was like super interesting, and it's for video games that are former Game of the Year winners. Okay. So these games have won Game of the Year at some point. And this is the amount of people who have beat it. Uncharted 4, which I beat. Excellent game. It's about 15 hours. 23% beat that game.
I beat that game. I'm part of that 23%.
Yeah, nice. It's a great game. And it's fun from beginning to end. It's pretty action-packed. Baldur's Gate 3. So everyone was talking about that game, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, isn't the meme like people don't get out of the first act?
Dude. Yeah, that's part of my stats here. So 21% have beat the game. Only half have completed the first act.
Wow.
Yet it's winning all these awards, and it's the
This
greatest
is crazy.
game ever.
Yeah.
This is super fascinating.
Right? I'm like pulling these numbers. This is crazy. Here's a game. Here's 3 games, actually. Actually, I'm going to give you 4 because they're all by the same developer. Okay? And I'll rapid fire them. And you guys will know why the completion rate's low, probably. Okay. GTA Vice City, 21%. San Andreas, 19.9. GTA 4, 18.2, Red Dead Redemption, 15.9. Rockstar Open World Games. You know how many people just pick up that controller and screw around?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I did when I would play those kind of games. Like
I mean, Red Dead had way too much talking. I didn't want to deal
It's
with
fun. Yeah, I mean, it's
just
fun.
go and create your own mayhem. You don't need to. You would create your own story, basically.
it. GTA 5 is probably the highest grossing video game ever, I would think, at this point, because of the online. And then it sold like 100 million copies or something. So they don't need people to complete the story. They just need people to, yeah, like you said, mess around. And they have so much replayability that the story doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. That's why, like, when I saw these games on the list, I was like, yeah, I could see why. Red Dead, not as much, though, because GTA, I get that all of them could easily fall into this category. It doesn't matter. Because people go in that game and screw around. I've watched my older brother play GTA, and that's all he does. I'm like, have you ever, like, done the missions? You know, he's like, no. Like,
There's missions in this game?
So
well,
all
enjoying
these
yourself
games
don't matter.
So why do you think this is the why do you think it's the case? Like why do you think
It's weird because have you guys played The Last of Us?
yes.
No.
Okay,
I beat
played
that
it.
game.
I beat it too, but only 8.7% have completed Last of Us.
What?
Like under 10%. That's insane. Like,
And then
how?
they decided to make a show off of that?
Yeah, and a
that's how
sequel.
the other 92% completed the game because they just watched the show.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, how
That
is
is
it less
crazy.
than 10%?
So I've actually all right, geez, you've been giving me crap forever about not beating games. I beat Uncharted 4, I beat Last of Us, I beat Elden Ring.
Yeah. This is kind of blowing my mind right now because like
You're the outsider, weirdo.
because I
you
beat games. Yeah.
It's just so weird.
That's
right?
fascinating. I
It's-
wonder why.
yeah.
What is it? Why?
But
Why?
again, it's like we're talking about a different medium
Wait,
where it's like
so-
you go to a movie theater, you pay for the movie.
I've
but
never
then you're
walked out
like,
of a movie.
I'm only 10 minutes in. I'm going to leave.
But people do
Right.
walk out of movies, though. People do walk out of movies, but not at the rate that people don't complete video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, people walk out on video games like it's no one's business. It's wild.
I can
Yeah,
tell you
people
why I
quit
do.
slowly.
Like, you two probably beat a lot of the games that you play. I do not.
Yeah,
And
I think
I get
beat
bored.
every game.
You beat every game.
I beat every game I play.
Yep, me too.
I get bored, and then I just want to move on to something else. So I think there's like a point where I'm just kind of done with the game, especially with like JRPGs, big games, like where I know it's going to be 80 hours. I just get to a point where I'm like, I don't feel like playing. I'm bored. Like Luigi's Mansion. Well, Luigi's Mansion 2 is not that long of a game, but I'm just like, I'm bored. I don't feel like playing anymore. And then I just don't.
Yeah, and that's the thing though. It's like there's nothing wrong with anyone's play style. You know, like you play games until you're satisfied, and that's good. Like you're satisfied. You're free to move on. You know what I mean? Like for me, I can't do that, and maybe sometimes I wish I could, right? But when I start a game, I got to finish it.
Man,
And-
that is
and I'm
so
also
interesting.
invested.
I don't want to cut you off, but that's exactly how I am. Like the game that comes to mind for me is Advance War. Like I did not enjoy that game, but I bought it and I wanted to see why so many people love that series, or maybe not why so many people love it, but like why there are people that do love it. It is a big giant chess game, but it could take you like 40 minutes to figure out a match just to lose, to do that match all over again. And I was just so happy when it was over, but I had to finish it.
Yeah, and I totally get it. There's games that I get pretty deep in, and I know that I'm pretty close. Like I only have X amount of hours probably to go. I can sense that the end is near, and I'll power through it. Like for example, I reviewed Princess Peach Showtime, and I did not particularly enjoy that game. But I powered through it because I'm reviewing the game. And if I'm going to review it, like I got to roll the credits. Like I think that's just the right thing to do if I'm going to try to like give you the definitive honest answer. I have to beat the game, right? Because I got to speak to all of it, to the end of it, to the length of it. But I did not enjoy it. And I had to tell myself like, you know, you have to beat it because you're reviewing this game.
That's why I don't review games. That's why I have done a couple reviews in the past, and I don't like it. Like I feel like at the end it sours me on it, especially if it's a game that I don't particularly enjoy. But I can't do that because I would. Also, I don't think my reviews would go over too well with the general public because it would be 0 or a 10. Like there's no in between.
Peace.
Yeah. Like I even said in my review with Peach Showtime is that, hey, there's a place for this game. The kids are going to love it. Right. But for an adult, I even said in the review for an adult, I would not recommend it, but for kids, no doubt, you know, they would enjoy this game, but it's not good for adults at all. And I will say though that like I choose games based on the games that I want to play, and I went out a little outside myself with this one because this wasn't a game that I was like excited for, and I didn't even really think it was gonna be like my kind of game, but I was willing to do it because it's Nintendo. And, you know, I trust them. And I trust them because of the history with them, all the games I've bought over the years. So I bought it and played it. But I will say that a majority, really all the other games I've played, I play them because I'm genuinely interested. I know I'm going to like it, and I do. And so it's interesting, though, because I end up reviewing games, and it's like most of them I'm going to recommend because I already know like I'm going to like it, and then I do end up playing it, and I do like it. But it's like when you know you're tasting games and you buy games that you know are games that you're interested in, you're really not going to play bad games very often. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
No one's assigning me games to work on. I'm picking them myself. It's not like someone's like, hey, I need you to review this game. Sorry, I know it's probably not going to be good. It's like I get to choose what I want to play. So but if it's not good, like I'll tell you, like I reviewed the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game recently, the one that
not
came
the
out
Shredder's Revenge. Don't talk bad about that game.
Shredder's Revenge is masterpiece theater.
The Nickelodeon one.
Yeah, I love Shredder's Revenge. Yeah, I'm talking about Wrath of the Mutants, the Nickelodeon one. Reviewed that game. It's a total turd. And, you know, did I want it to be bad? No. But part of me was like, I don't know about this game. Because the Ninja Turtles have a very spotty history when it comes to video games. They've had a lot of games that weren't that great, and it just looked like it was going to be that. It looked like it fit that mold. And sure enough, it wasn't good. So I can tell before I buy a game if it's going to be good or not, but I also want to buy it because I was like, you know what? It's $30. I'm pretty sure I know the verdict on this one, but I'm going to give it a go. It was actually worse than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, no.
But at least I got to tell everybody, you know, like just as a reviewer, hey, dude, save your money. I'm a Turtles fan. I've played them all. I'm telling you right now, this game is not worth it. Save your money. Only buy it if you're a hardcore collector and you want to buy like the physical edition. And if you do, wait for it to go on sale for $10. And I wouldn't suggest anyone buying it digitally unless it was like $5.
Are you doing the new Turtles game that comes out, I think, tomorrow?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it
The
comes out the
roguelike one?
17th. Yeah, so that game came out on Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys on
Yeah,
iOS?
yeah,
And
Apple Arcade. Yeah.
people love it. People love it. So that was good to see. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I will be getting that, and of course the Nintendo World Championship. Very
Yep.
excited for that because those games, the NES games I grew up on, and so that game's going to be very fun for me. Yeah, I'm going out of town on Saturday, so I'll be playing like these games on the plane. I have my capture card, my portable capture card with me, so I can obviously capture some footage. So yeah, I'm gonna get in as much game time as possible while we're traveling, so I can get these reviews out the following week. But I think that Turtles game, just never playing it, but I can tell it's going to be probably a much better experience than the last Turtles game. Much different one too. But again, those two games, I can tell I'm gonna like them. It's just a matter of how much, what's gonna surprise me. Yeah, I was telling my cousin about that because he asked me, he's like, "How do you beat all these games? Like you just beat games you don't like?" I'm like, "No, I don't buy games I know I'm not gonna like." He's like, "Well, how do you know?" Because dude, we've been playing video games for 30 years. Of course, I know what I like.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, the games I end up playing, I really enjoy. So I don't have any games that I really don't like, outside of probably the couple I just named to you guys.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess just to give your final thoughts on the topic, let's say your opinion, and then with all of your notes and your stats, what is the actual like result? When it comes to video game length, is it better to have short or long? Does it matter? Your opinion, and then with the research that you went through.
I would say that ultimately, I don't think it should matter as much as it does because people aren't even beating the games. If 14% aren't beating the games, stop talking. Get off social media. Go beat the game. Stop complaining about everything in life. Just go beat the game, man. Like, it's wild to me. 14% is just, I think it's pitiful. I truly do.
I feel better about myself.
Honestly, Johnny, I feel good about you too, man. Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, like I say it's pitiful, but honestly, I'm disappointed.
Well, I think a part of it.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I think a part of it is
I'm not trying to say it. Go ahead.
People want to be in the zeitgeist, right? They want to talk about the games. Like they don't want to. Like they might buy a game that they know they're not going to necessarily like, and because everybody else is talking about it, and then turns out they don't like it, and then they just don't play it.
That's where the attention is. It's like when people were talking about Hellblade, most of those people probably never even played it, but they had an opinion on it.
Yeah, and I know people were really upset about the game's length. But let's be real. Nobody even bought the game. It was free on Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, is it really that bad? What were you expecting? Were your expectations in check? I don't know. I just know a lot of people were really upset. But for the people who did play and beat the game, they thought it was a great experience. So again, it's like, well, that's a really short game, but it was a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a happy medium, right? But you really have to take it at a case-by-case basis because each genre is going to be a different length. Horror games are not very long. They're typically like 10 hours. Outside of Resident Evil, a few of them are a little bit longer. Okay? So we're never going to get a 50 to 100 hour horror game.
Except for Amio.
Yeah, we'll see. JRPGs, though, RPGs, they're long games, right? Like you know what you're getting with that. You know that if you buy an RPG, you're totally going to get a lot of bang for your buck. Open world games, same thing, right? So I almost think that like if you are a round eight gamer to where you kind of play everything, I think it all evens out. It honestly does. It doesn't need to be put under a microscope. What you buy is probably going to even out, because if I spent $70 like I did on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but I put over 200 hours into it, and I buy another game that is $40, but I was able to beat it in 5 or 10 hours. Obviously, different ends of the scope here, but I think it all evens out, man. So really, it comes down to what's the most important thing. Is the game fun to play? Is it a good game? Is it an enjoyable experience? I don't care if it comes in a short form or if it comes in a long form. If it's enjoyable, that's what I'm going to play. I'm going to go play the good games. That's what it really comes down to for me. That's how I'd sum it up. Is it's all about the quality. If I'm enjoying myself, that's the most important thing, right? You don't play a video game if it's not fun. And if you do, why are you doing that to yourself?
Well, I don't know. Why do we do it to ourselves, Steve? But honestly, thank you so much.
Hold on. Before you close it out, I want to get Flea's comment in here because you missed their comment last week.
I missed part of their comment. I didn't miss their comment.
And I don't want to miss them again.
All right.
So we're going to get this in there. Flea says,
Flea.
There are some really short games that I'm perfectly happy were really short. One such game that comes to mind is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. I mean, really short. I did 100% completion in 5 hours, about 5 hours. But I thoroughly enjoyed those 5 hours and was satisfied by the story and the adventure. I was not sad at all when it ended because it was so good. But to be fair, I also didn't pay $60 for it. I get that. I understand where Flea's coming from. I played like Inside and Limbo. Those games are super short, but like really great experiences. You could also get them for like $2 now. But
indie games.
Yeah, indie games.
We see this a lot with indie titles. Look at Undertale. Great experience. Short. It's short, but it's great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, a lot of indie games are on the shorter end. They're great. They're also, they're priced relatively well.
They usually are priced accordingly.
I did want to thank you for recommending Mighty Thor. It is very fun. I enjoy it. It's tricky though. I hate there's some platforming that I'm like I don't like. I don't like this. Like the ones where you have to like bounce off of a box to get like you have to hit a, I don't even know what to call them, but like a little bouncy thing, and then it shoots a box and you have to jump off the box. The timing's just it's difficult.
Did you play that level yet where the wind is like blowing?
No, not yet.
Oh, dude, there's a platforming area where you have to like drop off a ledge, but the wind's blowing, and so it's pushing you the opposite way. So you have to move the joystick that way, and then time a double jump like perfectly to reach the other ledge, and you have to keep doing it. You're gonna see. You'll know what I'm talking about when you get there. You're gonna be like, dude, what? But I'll just say, like, you can do it. But it definitely, when you first look at it, you're like, how am I supposed to get up there? And that's what I did. I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. And through trial and error, you find out. But yeah, that game, precision platforming for sure, right? Like you have to be super precise with your jumps.
Well,
fun game though.
Steve, thank you so much, man. I know Johnny and I have been a big fan of your content since we have met you on the Nintendo Prime podcast, Nintendo Byte podcast. And I think that you are doing great things. You said earlier that you're trying to do these things, and I'm just gonna pull a Yoda. You are doing these things. You are reviewing and you are finishing these games um and putting out great content. So
Thank you. I appreciate it, man, very much.
yeah, yeah. Well, where can people find you? Just as a reminder and what you do.
Yeah. So again, I review new and retro video games. You can find me on YouTube at Thunderstash Gaming, and I'm on Instagram, same thing. TikTok, same, and then Twitter is Thunderstash YT for YouTube. That's where you can find me everywhere. I have a steady stream of shorts that go out. Try to put out like 2 a day, just so I have some content going out there while I'm working on playing games, beating them, and writing reviews. And so yeah, again, I've been
2 a
playing
day?
games my whole life.
My God.
Yeah, I got 2 a day. I got them scheduled to go out now. But yeah, been playing games my whole life. So I think I have a good perspective to bring. I am honest, and you can't pay me to give a good review. I can't be bought, right? Like, sometimes I see reviews, and I'm looking at it pretty hard, like.
Well, I understand. I understand
bigger
why
outlets
they
these
do
days.
it. I understand why they do it. Even like smaller creators, like if they get a game sent to them, they don't want to upset something that they got for free. They don't want to, but I mean, it's always good to you have to be honest. Like you can't
I agree.
let that sway you.
I agree. Sometimes truth hurts, and ultimately that's how you grow. And you never want to tell your subscribers a game is good when it's not. That's just not the right thing to do, because you're telling them basically where to invest their money. And I take that serious, especially because I worked in the financial industry for 10 years. I take that really serious.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all those links will be in our show notes, so please go follow Thunderstash Gaming, Steve. Johnny, where can people find you?
I'm Johnny Bo everywhere: Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, the Nintendo Powercast. And I did want to shout out Drip and G, because Cheesy was on an episode last week for Drip and G podcast. And then also I played Nintendo Switch Sports against Jeeb. So we played some basketball. And dude, I'm a baller. I've been telling people I'm a baller. Maybe I shouldn't talk about this around Steve, but I'm a baller. All right. I played in high school. I played my freshman year in high school, but I rode the bench. But I think my issue, like if I could go back and do it all again, like I would realize, like I was probably too nervous and too self-conscious. Like I'd be like, it doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. Just be more relaxed. Like right now, like I think I could be a pretty good baller if I got into better shape, It
was normal back then. That's how I was too. Like I think that was the biggest thing I had to do, was prepare myself to not be nervous before a game, because I was so excited for the game.
Yeah.
And so that was for all the competitions and the league games. If I go down to open gym, to the rec center to go play ball, no problem. It's when it's like a league game or a tournament, that's where it's like you really have to, meditate before and get your mind right so you can go in there and do what you do. So I get it. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Well, you can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Nintendo Powercast. We're going to shout out the Nintendo Byte podcast as well. Go check them out. You can find me at CheezyC64, CheezyC64. Steve, thank you so much for being on and providing all your amazing notes and game knowledge. Close us out with just some thoughts. So what's the first thought that pops in your head?
First thought,
Yeah.
I will say I had a great time with you guys. It was great chatting with you. And I don't know. I guess if I could put a bow on all of this, it would be to finish the games that you play. Because you never know how good it's going to get if you don't allow it to. It's the same as reading a book. If you only read 1 or 2 chapters, but the payoffs in chapter 7 and 8, then you never get to experience it. So finish what you start. Now, to John's point, it will say that you play games till you're satisfied, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. So we all have different ways to play, and no